Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is Tamara Richardson. Hi.
Hey, how are you, Wanako? I'm so excited to be here and talk about my favorite subject, Jesus.
Yeah, perfect. We will go into it. um,
Yes.
yeah, are you also aware of A Course in Miracles?
I am, and I know that was knowledge that was sent to someone through Jesus because he never died. He's still living. So yes, I am. But he talks to me, I think, because I've had 6 near-death experiences, and one of them I was dead 15 minutes on arrival, and I was on and off dead for 2 hours. And of course, he resurrected me more than once. But I spent it over there 3 days with him, so I've always been able to hear his voice. So I get my own downloads of things that I mean, and they're sometimes I'll wake up and he's still talking. Sometimes I'll get a little message during the day. I just never know when it's going to come.
Marvelous. So let's go into this. When did this start, and what happened beforehand, and how did your life change after this started?
Well, I think I was kind of different when I go right out of the hatch. I think I was different, but I think God doesn't make mistakes. So whatever our experiences are unique to ourselves and unique to the growth of our own soul's development. But my first near-death experience, I didn't even know it was considered one until I read a book by PMH Atwater on childhood near-death experiences, and I had a prenatal, and I remember hovering around my mom, watching her pregnant, and um, I was really not really concerned in myself. It was before, I was forming in her stomach, and it was I almost didn't come in. It was she she just didn't almost carry me, and so she had a big mishap, and I just felt a lot of love and compassion. But I would say my first near death experience and my experience with Jesus, I remember we didn't really come from a religious family or anything. My mom secretly believed in God and Christ, but my stepdad was an atheist and he didn't like talking about it. But my grandmother was a very devout, loving Christian lady, and she was really big into the Presbyterian church. She was always meeting with the ladies. She'd take me along, and they would have these charities they would do. And she always talked about Jesus as our best friend, and you can tell him anything, and that, how to pray. She showed me the Lord's Prayer. I am like so grateful. I got to tell you, I could cry. I'm so grateful my grandmother told me about Jesus because boy, did I need him. But she told me about him at a very early age. And then when I was 3, I was playing in this, it was an old antebellum house. It was my cousin's, one of my cousins and I were playing there. We were playing hide and seek. It was upstairs and downstairs. And she was downstairs and I was upstairs hiding, and I was jumping around. I jumped around everywhere and I hit my head. Well, I didn't know what it was, but I was jumping, and under a dresser cabinet was a nail hammered underneath there. I don't know why, because it was a nice looking place. I don't know what a nail was doing there, but the nail went through my skull and instantly I thought it was water, but it was blood, and I passed out. And so I saw, the typical like you hear, but I was above my body. And then I saw all these beings of light kind of start filling the house. I saw from different viewpoints and so forth, different, um, kind of like everywhere at the same time. But then I saw, to me, I didn't realize it later, but it was my guardian angel. But it was an angel that was really big, like 9 or 10 feet, all glowy, full of light, and didn't have the presence of a human. It had the much higher than that, much holier than that, and then had the hands over my head. So I think it was healing me. But After that, I mean, I was sent to, looked at different perceptives and all that. And the lady of the house, uh, it was my uncle's mother-in-law, called my grandmother and granddaddy. My grandmother was the matriarch, so she rushed over there. She sent me to her internist, like the back door. He wasn't even working, but she had clout in the town. He went into the office and said I had a contusion, but the Lord healed my head. It was a couple years. I did have a hole in my head, but at that moment, I always saw into the spirit world. I was always talking to Jesus, but because I guess because I popped out of my body, you know, I was just more connected in that way than most people. They take a while to kind of get there, but yeah, it's didn't really have anyone to talk to about that, but it definitely was my angel. And then I heard God, and I know it was the voice. It was not just a voice, it was a all-knowing, permeating feeling, like there was no question. It was God, and it said, "This is not your time. You have much to do." And soon as those words were said, it was like it wasn't just words. It was like in my whole soul, my body. I was back. So, and then that was 3, and then at 4, I had a car accident. My mom was seeing this fella. We were from the Carolinas, and it was in Hickory, North Carolina, and there probably wasn't a whole lot going on there. And she had her eyes on this radio DJ guy, real flashy, and she wanted to put us together because at the time she had me really early on, had a pretty much so shotgun wedding, didn't last. So here she is, single, living with her parents. And so she wanted to create her own family, wanted me to meet him. But the day that we met him, he was driving. He was picking us up at my grandmother's, and it was a really bad day. It was like snowy and icy, and really a day that really nobody's out. It was one of those kind of days. It was just bad weather. And so we went out to eat. I remember Pizza Hut and ice cream. I distinctly remember that. And then we went by his radio station and left me to look at, said, "Oh, you can have any of these albums that you want." And I remember the albums I was looking. I only took 3. I had like 500. I only wanted 3. I took one with the Monkees, one was Motown, and one was a nun that sang the Lord's Prayer. And I played that over and over again my whole life. I just love that. I still sing the Lord's Prayer. I think it's really powerful when you sing prayers. And so I was there, and I guess we were there an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they walked out of a room arguing. She wanted to get married. He wanted to wait till he had more money. So once we got back into the car, he sped out. So we weren't a mile down the road, and the car did a 180, and then it hit a tree. And so this was pre-car seat days. So my little body went up through the windshield, and when it hit the impact of the windshield, we were in an old Pontiac, and which is one big long seat. When it hit, I was instantly, I felt no pain. In the moment that I hit the windshield, I felt like I was in this, it just had the sense of a tunnel, this black tunnel. I was really confused because I didn't know where my body was. And I was wet and I was cold and I was fearful and I couldn't find my body. I didn't understand what just happened, but I didn't feel any pain. And then I looked in the distance, and coming from the distance, like toward me, almost like it was like a fan on him, like a rock video, but it was Jesus. And he had his arm stretched out to me, and he had the holes in his hand. He had the holes in his hand. And behind him were people that I felt like they were family, but I didn't know them, but I didn't really understand that. They could have been ancestors. I don't really know. But he came up to me, and his hair was kind of being blown back. And he said that I had to go back. And then when I saw his face, I said, "I don't want to go now." And he said, "You have to, and you will." He said, "You can, and you will." He was like really serious. And then he said, "But I'll always be with you." And next thing you know, I'm back, in my body. And I'm looking at the scene. And at this point, we have these good old boys trying to pull the driver's side tire out of the tree where it kind of wrapped around. And then I'm seeing it to the right, It looks like a rip in the universe. It's what I can. It was. Uh, it was like a God portal. It was. I saw beside this angel that was golden and orange. It wasn't scary. It was beautiful, but it was powerful. And later on, I always heard the name Uriel. I never knew that was an archangel till much later. But this angel was beside me, and then this. It looked like a rip in the universe. I don't know. Maybe I was seeing between dimensions. I can't really say. And so, and then I was back, and then I could also see different dimensions going on where the park was, but it was iced over, of course. And I saw like a Native American Indian cooking food over a fire with the fish. That was, and they weren't there. So was I seeing a past time? Was I seeing another dimension? I really can't answer that. I really don't know. And then I saw like it looked like an 1800s couple walking through the park too. And I know no one was out. So I don't know really what that was. Could have been a memory I was looking at. I can't really say. Could have been just an impression from the past. And so, but it was definitely my angel again, the same one. My angel's working really overtime. But it wasn't till when I was 5 that during all this time, my mom really wanted to be with this guy. And during that day of the car accident, my nose was really busted up and I had fragments in my nose, really bad cartilage broken up. Matter of fact, as an adult, I had 2 surgeries to remove it. It was just still in there. So it was my nose was I had blood everywhere. They took me back to the radio station, and there was a cleaning lady there, and she saw me, and she asked if she could help. And I remember I needed medical attention, but they wouldn't take me because she was planning to. Well, she didn't go back to my grandparents a mile down the road, and they would have had the money and the means to take me to the hospital, but they refused to. And the woman said, "Well, I'll take you." Like the cleaning lady said, "I'll take her." And they said no. So that was the last day I saw my grandparents, and she went off and took me to his trailer. It was awful because we had, my grandparents had a small business, but they had means and they had a nice place. And anyhow, we at that point sexual abuse started. I didn't know what that was. I'm 3.5, 4 years old. I really didn't know what all this was. So um, but I would pray to Jesus and I would ask him to help me and deliver me. And I would tell him I can't do this. But she ended up marrying him and he adopted me without me really asking me, but that's what happened. And then the next year we went to Raleigh, North Carolina, where he had a job and with another radio station. And my mom was working temp. And when she would go, he said, "Well, I'll watch her." And it was awful. And I used to pray to Jesus so much, "Please, please deliver me. I don't know what this is." And I used to say, can you kill him? I mean, I didn't know that was a bad thing. I didn't know it was a sin. I just wanted it to stop. And then I started thinking, I think this is wrong. So then I said, "Well, would you take me instead?" And I said, "I can't do this anymore, please. I can't be here anymore. I don't know what this is, but this world is cruel." So while we were there, I got really bad strep throat. It went into a couple days, didn't get medical attention again. And then my fever got up to 103.9, and then it got past that too. But that was where it was before they even took me anywhere. And it was the night that Martin Luther King got assassinated. And so it was martial law. You couldn't go out or you'd be arrested. So my mom called the hospital and asked what was wrong, and they said, and the fever was high, and they said, "Well, they put me in a tub of ice," which when you're freezing, a tub of ice is a horrible idea. And so that was almost worse than the near death experience, the tub of ice. So they did that. My temperature wouldn't go down. They put me and dressed me, or my mom did, for bed. And then an hour later, I was soaking wet. I was unconscious. So they used the radio car to take me to the hospital. Now, my mom never told me all this. I remembered all this. And I remember the hospital. It was called Rex Hospital because I was a kid and it sounded like T-Rex. So we get in the car to go. And I mean, they were arguing because she said, we should have taken her earlier. He's saying we didn't have the money. And so as we're driving, I die on the way and I'm above the car, but kind of observing, not really, there's no emotion. I'm just looking at the fires because there's riots going on. So I'm looking at the fires in the distance and I'm just kind of following along with the car, mildly interested. I know that sounds odd, but I'm just mildly interested, kind of following along. And then we come to the first barricade, and yeah, he told me his daughter, but I wasn't his daughter at that point, but said it needs to go to the hospital and it's an emergency. And he saw what was going on, that I was kind of limp. So he's like, okay, we'll let you through. So he called ahead to all the barricades. So they just waved me through. And when I got to the hospital, I had a team of about 8 or 12 people came and got me, and they rushed me into a room and I saw all the things they did and the equipment and the stuff they talked about. And they said that they logged me in, DOA, dead on arrival, for 15 minutes. And then they began to work on me and take this, uh, it looked like pus out of my lungs. I mean, I was watching all this stuff, and I was told I had a strep throat, but in reality it was pneumonia. And what happened was, on and off for 2 hours, they could not get my pulse. They couldn't get it back. They keep losing it. And then my lungs eventually collapsed. So there was two male doctors that were working on me, and several nurses. And one of the doctors went and told my mom, who was sitting out in the waiting room with my stepdad, to be stepdad, and said, we can't get her vitals. We're working on it. And she's like, okay. I don't think she understood what they were saying. And then I was a spirit person zooming through the hospital, like looking in rooms, looking at people, looking at candy machines. And I would go back and check on my body. And I thought it was kind of gross what they were doing. So I'd leave again and then come back. And then I heard the whole dialogue. I heard them saying, oh, I have a little girl her age. And then finally, at some point, they covered me with a sheet. It was really sad. And people were crying in the room and all that. And so literally Jesus resurrected me, because there was some kind of tech that was going to come in and take me. And I was literally resurrected. But while this is going on in spirit, I'm zooming through the hospital. I'm seeing some old guy that wants water. No one's paying attention. So I knock it off as a spirit. Don't ask me, this is so strange, but I knock it off so someone will come get him new water. Some lady's having a baby and she's dying. And I said, your daughter needs you. You need to stay here. So I thought I was an angel, because I was going around talking to people. And then so I go back to the room, and it was really quiet. It had two, we were Presbyterian, but I knew they were Catholic because they had rosaries and the way they were dressed. And it was a woman and a man, but they weren't, how do I say it? They were spirit people. They weren't people. I mean, they were spirit people. And they said, but they were holy. And they said, blessed are the children. I found out a couple of years ago, the hospital was Catholic. So they're dedicated to their job. That's all I can say. I don't know. Maybe God sent them there to pray for me. I don't know. But the next thing I know, I look down and there's this man kneeling that's holding my hand. And his face was so beautiful. And I said, you're that man I talked to. And he smiled really big he's got great teeth and dimples. And he said, I am. And it was Jesus, like 1,000%. And he was so beautiful. And he was really glowy. He had like an inner light. He had on a white robe and a blue sash and just a very common kind of belt. And then he told me, he said, you have to go back. And where I am now is I'm in this beautiful pasture. It looks like paradise. It's just beautiful. It's like the prettiest park you've ever been to. And I'm looking to the left. I'm seeing kids play on like a little roundabout thing that you twirl around. And I said, well, they're here. I can stay too. And he's like, no, you have to go back. You're not done yet. You have to go back. And I argued with him. And of course, I tell my husband that, and he's like, of course you argued with Jesus. But I wanted to stay there with him. And he said that he had something to give me. And I said, what? And a toy? Because, I'm 5 years old. So I'm thinking a toy. And he goes, no, he thought that was funny. He goes, no. And he pulled, it looked like strings from his rope belt, and he wrapped it in my left wrist. And he said, much is given, much you'll give. And he said, I give you my love and love, wisdom, and my Father's power. And then he said, through the big things, the small things would be done, and through the small things, the big things would be seen. And then I said that I wanted to stay with him, and I kept begging to stay. And he's like, no. But he said, I tell you what, you can stay a little bit longer, and we'll walk around, and you can ask me questions. And I was so excited. So as we're walking, I'm seeing the grass, and it's like every petal of the grass is alive, and every blade of that grass is worshiping him. I mean, it's like a tone, like a tonality of song. It's like it's like this praise and this joy. And then I noticed that even that the flowers, every petal had life. The trees were following him, the leaves, everything kind of leaned toward him, even the clouds, because I was thinking, does he know these things are following him? And so he began to tell me things, and he said, let's sit over here. And we walked over to this large rock, a boulder. And he said, we can sit here. And behind the boulder was a big, beautiful tree. It was a beautiful tree. It was really big. And it looked like it had cherry blossoms on it and reddish types of grapes. Or that's what it looked like to me. And he says, we don't eat from this tree. It's a wise tree. And I was thinking I wasn't going to eat from the tree. I was just looking how pretty it was. Really not hungry right now. But that's what he said. I said, okay. And he said, he said, you can ask me whatever you wanted. And I asked him, some silly things like, how does electricity work? Why am I here? What is this place? And he said, it's the place that everybody wants to be. Yeah, that's a club you want to get into and have a VIP admission. It was beautiful. And then he said he wanted to tell me something. He said that, I said, what do people do here? He said, whatever they want to do. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they can do whatever they do on earth. He said, but they don't have to worry about things here. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he said, on earth, he said, what you think, you manifest. He said, what you speak, you manifest. He said, it just takes a while longer on earth, but here it's instant. He said, what you think, you manifest. He said, your words have power, so be mindful on the words that you choose. And I said, can I try? And he goes, yeah. So I visualized us being on a little boat, and we were. And then these 3 fish came up to him. He picked one up out of the water, talked to it, and said hello and put it back in. He goes, that's how we fish here. And it was just beautiful. I mean, it was just everything you could imagine. It was like the most perfect day, the perfect temperature. At one point, because I was there, for 3 days in a coma, they finally, when they got me back, had a very dull pulse. My lungs collapsed. They had me in an induced coma for 3 days, which I don't know how that translates in heaven. I mean, it could have been years in heaven. I mean, I don't know how long that would really mean, but I'd stayed there a while. And at one point, I even swam in a stream, and I could breathe underneath the water. And there was no decay anywhere. There was no fungus, in the rocks. There was no sewage or nothing like this. And it was just beautiful. And I remember dancing around for him, trying to get his attention to try to stay. And he said that he depended on me, and he wanted me to help bring heaven to earth. He said, we need to talk about something. So he had me agree to my mission before I came back. And he was telling me that a lot of people have lost their sense of humor and forgotten who they are. And I'm 5 years old, so I'm thinking they have a disease, like they can't laugh anymore disease. And he goes, you could help them with laughing. And I'm like, yeah, I think I could do that. And then he said, people take themselves so seriously. And he says, I want to bring heaven on earth. And he started telling me what he wanted me to do. And I said, that really seems like a lot of work. He thought that was funny. And he said, you're not the only one doing it. I work with other people too. And I'm like, well, and I finally said, okay. So when I came back, he, um, I didn't go right back. He said, it's time for you to go back. And he showed me my mom and he said, you need to go back to her. And I told him, she'll be fine. She doesn't need me. I'd rather be here with you. And he said, no, she needs you. He said, you've got more love in her than she has love for herself. And then I said, well, what? I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? He said, you're the one who's supposed to teach her how to love. And I said, well, I don't know how to do that. How do you do that? He goes, well, that's something I know a little bit about. And there's no right or wrong way to go about doing it. And he said, but you'll figure it out. And so, really today as an adult, looking back what he said, it's taken me years to figure out that to forgive her and love her because she knew about the abuse the whole time. And that's what he meant. If he knew all that, I don't know if I would agree to it. But I mean, he talks to me just like a real person he always has. So when I came back to the hospital, I would not go in my body. And apparently I was zooming around like an angel talking to everybody. And then, because there's a lot of people passing over in hospitals, crossing over, and some of them were confused. And then there was a doctor that showed up, Dr. Tippin. He was a spirit doctor. I mean, meaning I guess he used to work there. And he says, little girl, it's time. You have to get back in your body. And I said, nope, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to do that. And but I felt like he was the hospital administrator at some point. But so Jesus showed up and said, um, "You've got to get back in your body." I said, "No, it's going to hurt really bad." And he said, "No, I've made it where it doesn't hurt. It'll be okay." And he said and as soon as he said that, I was back and I saw my family in front of me. So I think 5 was the biggest one because I was out for so long. And then I had a drowning at 10 on a family vacation. I was hung up under the pool under some guys playing volleyball, and I saw the horizon kind of open up under the pool and angels, a chorus of angels. And next thing you know, I was coughing up water. And then I had a reaction to one pill for menstrual migraines when I guess I was mid 30s. And I started losing. I woke up, bells went off, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I had one pill, it was a prescription. And I was like, this is terrible. I'm very sensitive to medications now, but because of my near death experiences. And I didn't know I went to the living room. I couldn't wake up my husband. I couldn't form words. I don't know why. I couldn't speak, but I went in there and turned on the TV and thought, well, if I can just follow what people are saying, I'll be okay. And then next thing I know, I didn't know I was male. I didn't know I was female. I started feeling fearful, which I knew what was next, not caring. And I didn't go to the higher levels in that one. I just kind of went out kind of to look like space. To be honest, it looked like space. And then I just said, I kept saying, this is not my time. And so I just I was still aware of my body. So I just kept tapping it on the side till I came back. But Jesus has been with me always, and especially the really opened the door on the one at age 5, because I never, ever, ever stopped talking to him. And he's always been a presence to me. I think there was a few years in my 20s where I was doing the 20-year-old college, go out and kind of party thing, or whatever you're supposed to do, that I wasn't as, I still talked to him, but I wasn't quite as close. But I can't imagine living my life without him because he literally gives me guidance for everything. So I've always loved him. I tell people he's our best friend and he wants to have a relationship with everybody. He doesn't care, if you're Christian, not Christian, religious, not religious, Muslim. He doesn't care who you are. He just loves everybody so much. And he wants to interact with people. He wants to give them advice. Maybe it's in your dreams, maybe you get a little message during the day, but he wants to help people and not only receive their prayers and gratitude, but he wants to interact. And I don't think people realize that because he's the living Christ. He never died.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, Yeshua, as I got Yeshua for him, but yeah, Jesus is just
Yes.
as good.
Yeah, Yeshua.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeshua. Jesus, I know that's just a habit because I'm used to that, but Yeshua. And he's interactive. Um, I saw, this is nuts. I didn't expect it. I certainly didn't ask it, but I saw him in the flesh, um, July 2017. And I saw him. He wasn't a mirage and he wasn't see through. He was completely human. And I've also talked to a couple other people that have seen him in the flesh too. Um, Sharon Milliman, who was on my channel, she talks about it and seen him in the flesh. But my husband and I were going to a Hall & Oates concert. I'm serious. We're going to a Hall & Oates concert. And it was a beautiful July day. And it was, in the summer, it doesn't get dark till 9. So it's like 6:15, totally bright, perfect day. And all we're doing is looking for a parking place uptown Charlotte because, once you go through town, you got to go circle back. It's only one way. So we're looking for a parking place. He's looking on the left. I'm looking on the right. And then my soul knew all of a sudden I didn't see anything. I just shouted out, "My Lord," really loud. My poor husband. But yeah, I did. I shouted, "My Lord." And then I looked in the distance to the left in the middle of the road where there was a medium and grass and so forth. I looked in the middle of the road, way in the distance. I saw a figure, but my soul knew it was Jesus. But I was going, I was arguing with myself and I was going, no, no, it can't be. It can't be. And so as we get closer, I'm staring, and it's not moving that fast. I mean, this lasted 3 or 4 minutes. And as we're going, past, getting up close, I'm looking for markings. I'm looking for tattoos. I'm looking for markings, any kind of markings, right? To make sure this just can't be real. And then I'm looking, I'm just really thinking this can't be. As I get close, I'm looking. He had on modern clothes. He had on a white tunic down to his calves, but it seemed modern. I mean, I can't say he bought it like at the Banana Republic, but it looked modern. And then it looked very clean and pressed. He looked very clean. And then the pants were a brown, green, it was brownish with a little bit of green khaki, like a darker color. And his sandals matched them, but the sandals were not, they didn't look like Birkenstocks. His feet looked so clean. His feet looked cleaner than any man's I've ever seen. And he had just 2 straps for his sandals and it matched his pants. His feet were beautiful and I could see the grass curling around his feet. So he's like on the grass, like I can see this. And I'm thinking, there's no way this could be him because this is a real person. And so I'm looking at markings, jewelry, nothing. And I'm looking at his face. Uh, he looked like he had a lot of yellow in his skin, like he had a tan. And so maybe olive complected, you would say. But he looked really healthy. And he was about 6 foot, 6'1", and he was thin, but he was muscular. So I think like, the Roman Catholic pictures you would see or whatever, normal, he's skinny and looks terrible. But no, he looked really healthy. He looked like really lean and healthy. And I was reading on a book by Galinda Green, who ended up painting Jesus and having visions of him, that she studied and found out that him being a carpenter and what he was, he literally had to cut down the wood and drag the tree. So, he had muscles because he worked like a young guy would in construction. He did. But he looked very healthy and his skin was perfect. His hair was very bouncy. It looked like a hair commercial. It was about maybe 3 inches below his collarbone. And it was brown with caramel highlights, like he's been outside. He had dimples, great teeth, blue-green piercing eyes. And he looked like a model. I mean, I actually thought this has to be a metrosexual hippie. That's what I'm thinking, looking at this guy going, he looks perfect. He looks absolutely perfect. So at this point, I'm gawking at him. I'm going through everything it could possibly be. I'm going, this can't be real. And then I am now over the seat where my husband's driving. Luckily, I'm wearing a long dress. My butt is up in the air. I'm looking at this person. I mean, it's quite a spectacle, and you would think that this person would be laughing or like, what are you doing? Why are you acting like this? But when I looked at his face, at this point, I am hysterically crying and laughing. Yeah, like a full-on crazy person. I'm like so if euphorically happy, I can't even stand it. My soul knows, and I'm just like happy and crying. I'm like totally having an ecstasy. They talk about it, a moment, and I'm leaning over this thing, just like getting every last chance I can to look at him, and I've never seen this face on one human being ever. And I've only used this term only on puppies and babies. But when I looked at his face, it was the face of purity. He looked at me. He wasn't laughing. He didn't have those kind of human things. He looked through me and with me with purity, with no judgment and nothing but love. And I've never seen that on anyone's face. Anyone. It was just supernaturally awesome, but it was an ecstasy moment. I really did not expect this in broad daylight, but why not? Why can't he? I know a woman who's seen him twice. One time it was in her kitchen, and he had on the same outfit with her, which is strange. It was the same outfit because we described it. We had a laugh over that. So what? He had the same outfit on. But yeah, he can do that. He's not dead. So he can, if angels can do that and form into humans, why in the world can't he instantly show up? Why he did, people ask. I can't answer that, except it could be something simple as just to say he loved me. It could be just something simple, or it could be to help my faith because, the times we've been going through, there's a lot of meanness in the world. Maybe it's that. So, one day I guess I'll know, but whatever it was, I feel grateful.
Yeah, beautiful. So you speak to him all the time, right?
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, pretty much all the time.
And he speaks to you all the time too?
Um, he listens a lot, and sometimes he does speak back, yeah, but I'd say it's pretty regular. And it's more, it was a private thing that I've always had between us. I never told anyone. But here's the thing: he does this with everybody. If you're open to that, he will definitely tell you. But it was March of 2020. He came to me and he said, which I don't really officially ever remember him asking me anything, although he has asked me stuff, like, especially when I came back. But he did ask me. He said, I want you to carry my messages. And it was March 17th, 2020, I remember. And I went, no, I do not feel comfortable with that because I can hear it right now. The judgments, no thanks. I don't feel comfortable. Certainly there's somebody else that can do a better job. And then here comes, he gave it a day. He gave it a day for me. And then it was March 19th. And he said, I want you to do this. I'm asking you to do this. I want to give you some messages and I want you to go on YouTube. Yeah. Oh yeah. He was very explicit on YouTube and tell people what I'm saying. And I went, I really don't feel comfortable with this. Certainly you have a lot of other people you can choose than me. Really, a lot of people. I just don't really, I really just don't want to be that public about that. So he came back again the next day and he said, I'm asking you, please, would you do this for me? And I was like, oh man, this is awful. I can't say no a third time. Yeah, I had to live with this. I was like, okay, all right, just tell me, what do you want me to do? So he said, I want you to set up a Zoom session. I want you to go air live on YouTube. I went, this is a horrible idea. Like, I don't feel comfortable at all. And so he said, I want you to see, I hear him. Not really words like, "Hey, how's it going?" But in my head, I hear him, and I know it's him because it sounds like him and all the stuff he says in the Bible. But I have other friends that have, the same thing. But anyhow, and he's talking to people like crazy these days. And so I did the Zoom. I had about 75 people on there, and I knew a lot of people were just curious, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. But I did what he asked. And then I did it again live, and he was waking me up, telling me messages, and I would write for 2 hours. And then he would give me scripture, and he would say, like, First John, blah. And I'll be like, I don't even know what that is. Okay, I'll write that down. And he would give me like 3 to 5 per each message of scripture. And I wouldn't know what it was. I would just, okay, what is it now? Ezekiel what? All right. So I would go later and look up the scripture, when I wasn't talking to him, I'd go look it up, and it was exactly what he said, which was totally amazing to me. It was totally evidential. It was awesome. But the message is basically he did that from March to July. And that was, I called them Jesus Speaks, but it's just beautiful what he said. He basically knew all the stuff that was happening right now. He knew it a long time ago because he answered stuff. Like, it was amazing. And even in one of them, I guess I can't say this because I won't be censored off the Telegram, but in one of them, it was called Into the Storm. And he talked about there's a hungry lion that's prowling around and to stay close to him. And he talked about, he said, my father's, now this is back in April 19th, 2020. Okay. So this is right when all this crazy mess started. He said, one of the things he said, I didn't realize, but I got somebody asking me about it, and the comment was immediately removed. And I'm like, I went back and looked at it because I'm like, what are they talking about? But Jesus said, my Father's sovereign power and might is greater than any vaccine, greater than any vaccine. That's what he said. So we didn't even know about a vaccine. I can't even say that word on YouTube or I'll be taken off. So he answered it back then, and then he answered a lot of stuff. And the big theme I felt through it was, I'm real, I love you, let me be your best friend. Let me take he said, you can't trust men, but you can trust me. I'm your best friend. He says, men will lie to you. There'll be lies from every which way, but I'll never lie to you. So he was urging people to like connect with him, and because what I'm seeing, and especially a lot of believers and followers, is we're getting similar messages, and that's really proof that we're all on the same page, team God. Because if he likes to give similar messages to people because it's evidential that it's real and that he's with us and he will never forsake us. But more than ever, he is talking to people, and the whole thing was urging people to write it down. Listen to me. I'll talk back with you. I will communicate with you. It's an interactive relationship. And I don't think people really got it. And he said, don't listen and be involved with all the lies and the gossip of men. And I think he meant all this crazy stuff like news, And he said, listen to me and stay in my peace and stay under my wing and my direction. He also said that he is walking among us. And he said, I never realized it. So he's walking among us. So sure, why not? He can do that. People are waiting for him to come back. He never left. He just, I don't know if he's going to make a big display to everybody, like it says, but he never left. So he can do these things. And he's definitely, I'm noticing that, just an observation personally, that people that, have gone through Christianity and listened to what maybe the minister said, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he wants them to listen to him directly. And so, it has to do with upping your faith. And it also has to do with not listening to someone else, but listening to you. You decide, you work with him directly. And so because of that, I'm seeing people that you might consider like undesirable, heathen, somebody like, I don't know a better word, but you're not the person you would expect. Jesus is picking out the most unusual people to carry his word. And I think there's two reasons for that. is, do they have a pureness in their heart to serve like a child? And number two, um, well, there's three things. Do they love him with all their heart? And the third thing, are they obedient? Because he likes to depend on people he can trust to do things. Even though I kind of give a little problem in the beginning, like, wait, what do you want now? I always do what he asks me to do, even if it's lay hands at, on someone, which I did one time. He asked me, I said, no, I'm not doing it unless you bring her over here. But it was like at the Dollar General. And so he wanted me to go up to some old lady and lay hands on her. I said, I could get arrested. Are you kidding? I can't just do that. But I said, okay, if you make her talk to me, then I'll say, that God has a message for her and wants to heal her back problem. And so I try to be obedient to what he asks. And these days, I never know what he's going to say. He's telling me all sorts of stuff, but I don't feel like it's for the general public.
Wow. Yeah, what a journey. Yeah.
And but does that make sense? He wants to talk to everybody, because you're talking about A Course in Miracles, and basically, maybe I'm not using the right word, or some people might not like it, but to me, that's channeled, meaning we're a vessel, right? A spiritual vessel for Holy Spirit Christ, that is, that was information given for that course, but and just like the Bible, was also channeled messages like, here you go. And I do think that Christ never turns down anyone, but he wants to go to direct these days, big time. He wants everybody to have a Jesus journal. And I talk about how to do that. It's all free if someone wants to look at that, but it's at my website, christacademyoflove.com. christacademyoflove.com, and it's all free. But you can see how to do a Jesus journal, how to write it down when you get messages, symbols, ways he likes to communicate. And after a while, it'll get easier and easier. And there's nothing you can't ask him. I mean, he loves for us to talk to him. He can handle that. We can talk to him all the time about anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know any taboos.
No, and you got to think back in his day when he was, biblical times. Even though I know he's forever, he's still here. I get it, but back in the biblical times, and he was hanging out with fishermen. There were prostitutes there. I mean, there were undesirable people. Now, in this day and time, we know people like that. They're real base. They like to, cuss, tell dirty jokes. Jesus heard all that back then. He can. He's heard it all. He's told me that, and he's even so funny. He's told me there was a lady I was trying to help to a minister to, and her family, and it was a few years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and I just remember this. It just came on the top of my head, but she was really nasty. I'm trying to help her family. She just had her brother pass, and I'm trying to, comfort the family and talk to them. And I asked Jesus, and I went to their home. It was out of the way, and I'm like, and they did feed me. That was really sweet, but this woman was just horribly mean and cruel to me. And they even her mama and her children said, Mom, why are you being so mean to this lady? And so I asked Jesus driving back home, I said, this was horrible. I said, why didn't you ask me to do this? And he said, that people come to me and come to enlightenment at different emotional levels. And I said, oh, so they don't pray and go, please come in, and because he said, that's ideal. And he said, but no, he said, a lot of people come to me either really depressed or really angry. And I went, oh. And he goes, yeah. So he said, but just because you saw her angry and that's where she is right now, it doesn't mean that you didn't touch her heart and that she's not going to change. He says, but a lot of people come to me, he said, all different ways. See, they come to me cussing. That's what he said. He said, they come to him all different ways. So he's tough. He can handle these things. He can handle anything.
That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he could handle the things that he handled according to the Bible, he can handle anything else.
Right. and just
Yes.
think he came in love to talk about his father's love and the love he has for us, and they killed him. So, I have to remind people, especially Christians, they want to run in and save everybody. And I'm not a big fan of that. I ask Jesus with every person, what should I do about them? Sometimes he'll say, pray for them, send them an email, give them somebody's name. And I'm thinking, well, if Jesus tried to come and save everybody and they killed him, right? He's perfect. I always ask him, what should I do with this person? Because maybe that person's not ready to hear your message right then. So I don't run in with it. I just, how do you want me to handle this person? And I find myself praying for people a lot these days and that their heart is softened.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that Yeshua speaks to everyone where they are at.
Hmm.
So,
Very
so
true.
if you're coming angry, really, really angry, or depressed, or just simply wanting to know whether he's there, right? Then then he'll respond to that.
Yeah, he that's what he was saying. He said, and so it kind of makes us look different. I always thought people came to Christ or enlightenment humbled, like I want to know more, I want to know you, humbled. And he thought that was funny. He goes, yeah, not really. He, I mean, that's just, I'm like, oh, I can't imagine coming to Jesus cussing, but he's heard it all. And so I think it was, um, what was it? I think it was seen
I
on
think that's
Fox.
actually very usual because
Mm-hmm.
when people are going through hardships, right? How could God allow this, right? How can you let this
Right.
happen, Yeshua, if they're speaking to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
so so these are the type of things people are coming with. Uh, and
Well,
that's the amazing thing
right.
that Yeshua has answers for that or has responses that are helpful, right? Where you might
Mm-hmm.
respond, annoyed, or how could you curse me, or how could you complain, right? Look at all the
Right.
things I'm doing for you, right? That's not the answer
Right.
he gives you.
Mm-mm. No. No, not at all. And he's much more down to earth. One of the things he told me in heaven, he said that through suffering comes understanding. I know we don't want to hear that. But maybe we're hard-headed, because sometimes we need comparisons. I've had people, which is not fun, and I don't enjoy it. And I certainly don't do it unless Jesus tells me. But I've done about 17 deliverances, and that the dark stuff it's real. But you know what? You think, why would God allow that? Well, if someone's really hard-headed and they are not coming to God or Christ, and there's one quick, sometimes God allows things to really open people's eyes that are traumatic. Could be a sickness, could be something dark, where they've got something. Yeah. And it could be, once they see that, I'm talking about like demonic or whatever, then it hopefully they'll run the other way right into Jesus' arms. I mean, because that's exactly where I would, because you're thinking, well, if that's real, my goodness, God and Jesus are so real. So I think that where we are right now, I really do think that we're in a spiritual battle of good and evil, probably epic proportions, not just humans, but probably angels, fallen angels, all sorts of stuff going on that we don't even know. And I think it's very important, especially now, to really cling close to Christ, and you won't be misled, because there's so much disinformation that's out there.
It's always been that way, actually.
Yeah, you're right. Well, no, it's true,
With
but
the
now there's just
disinformation
no.
and this total abandonment of love in many ways, right?
Oh, yeah,
and
you're
and
right.
so yes, and that's what I think is so amazing, that there is a response to that, right? There is a way
Mhm.
home.
There is
and
a way
and
home.
and there, in A Course in Miracles, it also speaks of this, um once a person has reached the spot, um, everyone has that place where they come to where they will choose to return, but it's different with
Right.
everyone.
Well, of course.
Right, it's a
Well, I mean,
different thing that does. The turning point is a different one for everyone, right? Yeah,
well, sure. It
yeah,
is. And some people have to go through more than others. And I've even had people say, why'd you have so many NDEs or near death experiences? That I'm going, well, it's not like you really die. I mean, we are eternal spiritual beings. And number two, I got to see Jesus. So, bonus for me. So it all worked out. And he healed me completely 100% of everything. So, everybody has different journeys. Why? Well, I think before, we can't prove this, but I do believe before we, are on this earth plane, there's a conversation what your little spiritual lesson is going to be, right? And we don't agree to, get sick or cancer or this or that, whatever abuse. We don't agree to that, but maybe we agree to, learn humility. We don't know the form or the lesson it's going to take, but I definitely do believe that we are here, learning lessons so our soul grows closer to Christ and not further away. But I think what's made things more complicated is our time that we're in is because we have in the past, we didn't have it so much. Yeah, man's always lied and done different things, but now things are also can be off balance. And we've got all these social media things and all this, and we've got so much stimuli, right? And so many distractions. And Jesus gave me a whole download on distractions. And he said, all these are distractions away from my love. And he wants to spend private, quiet time with us. And he said, these are distractions to take you away from me. And so he said, they may not appear evil, but underneath they're keeping you from me. So is that good? So, I have to monitor, I have a certain time that I cut off my phone so I can spend time with him and not have these distractions. So I think the distractions sometimes interfere with our relationship and our walk with Christ.
yeah. In A Course in Miracles, it speaks of the slightest anger or twitch of annoyance is a symbol of the whole thing. So those are things
Wow.
that are keeping us from
Hmm.
experiencing the love that's within us. Yes.
Right. Well, and he told me a few things. I mean, so Jesus, he says, be love, receive love, and give love. For in the end, that is all there ever was, and why we're here. But he also told me, I guess it was a couple years. It was so pretty what he said. He said, "Be the love you were created to be." And I'm thinking, if you think about it, that's not so easy, is it? Be the love you were created to be. That means be love all the time, no anger, and understand. And I even asked him about certain types of people and people that are mean spirited and so forth. And he says, always consider the source of um, where if anger is coming from. He said, consider the source and where they are and have pity on their soul. He said, because they don't understand. He said, they have a lack of love.
Yeah. Today I'm on one of the workbook lessons, and it's all about this escaping the world I see by letting go of all attack thoughts. It's the only way to escape it all. So it's not the world you see, so the way you're interpreting it, right? So that you
True.
can open up to the the way Yeshua is showing us, right?
Yes, it's a different way. It's counter to the world. What does he say? Be in the world, but not of the world. So,
Yeah, yeah,
one of the things that keeps showing me lately, and I don't have all the answers, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it's funny because he gave it to my husband too, and we went to eat at some diner, and he gave it to us at the same time. Which my husband's not very religious, so he loves God and Jesus, but he's kind of quiet about things more than me in that respect. But he gave us both Sodom and Gomorrah. And I thought, okay, we understand, Lot's wife turned to salt. We get it. Okay, why are we looking at this? Why? He gets read it. And I had no idea. You should look at, whoever's listening should look at it again. There was these two men that came into town that God sent, but they weren't men, they were angels. And so Lot and his wife said, they were on the outskirts of town, said, stay with us. They were actually worried for their safety. And so they said, stay with us. So they had, I don't know, the next day or two, they had a mob of people show up at the door, and they wanted to rape the angels. I had to go back and read it again. I said, are you reading this? And he goes, why do I said, this has to be pretty bad when a town wants to come in and rape some angels. I said, I kind of understand why God was upset, but he was talking about the lack of love. And he said that he's been taking measurements of people's hearts. That's just what and so I'm still trying to figure all this out. I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I don't understand. Sometimes he gives me things and I have to sit on it for a while and help understand. You know what I mean? I don't always know right off. I have to go, okay, what does that mean? Let me think about it. So we can only be responsible for us. I mean, we can pray for others, but we can only be responsible for us. But I do think that God is eternal and heaven is our home. And this feels very strange here because I don't think it's our real home. I think our real home is heaven. I don't think this is it. I think this is like a learning playground. And that's why so many people feel lost, because it's not the real place. We're in the fake place. The real place is the place that looks like paradise. That's beautiful. And one of my favorite things is what Jesus told the criminal on the cross. He said, when he asked for forgiveness and to be with him, and Jesus he said yes, and of course he did. And he said, for today I will see you in paradise. He didn't say in 2,000 years he's going to resurrect him. No, he said, today I'll see you in paradise. I saw him immediately when I died. I mean, I was with him immediately, and it was amazing. And it felt more real than here. It was more vibrant than here.
Yes, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And in A Course in Miracles, it also says that this is a dream, right, in which we are.
Yes.
And it's made up. We made it up to prove separation, which cannot be proved because it's not real. So
wow.
So it's all the result. The lesson today that I'm going through is showing that, or was it yesterday anyways, that this world is a symbology of vengeance. So you can see we need to let go of that, right?
That's not a good thing to hold on to.
Yeah, so it's changing our minds is the only way to escape the world we see, right?
Right. So do you do your Course in Miracles online? Is there a thing that you can do? I need to check this out.
Yes, you can do it online. You can get the free version. You can get it free online. Yes, there's many ways to do it. Yes.
Okay.
We
talk
can
about that later.
About that. Yes, exactly.
Perfect. No, this sounds right up my alley. This sounds really beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's marvelous. And the way when at some point Yeshua's giving me this message, you're to be a teacher of A Course in Miracles. You're a teacher of A Course in Miracles. And I was like, I have never read the book. I haven't read it yet. So I was like, okay, I'll have to get into reading it, right? So according to him, I already was a teacher of A Course in Miracles before I even read it.
Oh, yes.
So that was very interesting. Anyways, just to
Isn't
give an example.
Cool? Well, he knows, what's beautiful? He knows exactly where we're talented, where we're gifted, and he'll push you in the area that he knows you're going to excel in, because he already knows how it's going to turn out. But he loves to go into business with people. It comes up all the time with people. I'm like, yeah, Jesus said you're doing some kind of marriage counseling thing. He'd like to go into business with you. I I think it's the cutest thing I've ever heard. And I'm thinking, well, hey, with a business partner like that, you can't fail.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So, yeah, we could go
Wow.
on for hours. I will give our listeners the opportunity to ask some questions or comment if they like.
Sure.
Okay, I guess we'll go on.
Sure. No, that's fine. Well, that's
So,
totally fine.
yeah, so I think this is so important that Yeshua, like you were speaking of, that Yeshua
Mhm.
chooses the people not according to the criteria of the world, right? Like 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 you said,
Right.
you were like, why did you choose me, There's so
Well,
many other people, who are eloquent, who have a great
oh
um
yeah. Are you
are
kidding?
great at
Like,
language, are great speakers.
oh yeah. They have all
And
these
this and
degrees in
that.
divinity, and they've been, fancy titles and all of that. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's picking people out. I think it's those three reasons. Uh, their
yeah.
purity of heart, like a child that loves him truly, and that will be obedient. I think that's it.
I think the main thing is that the person needs to be
Mm-hmm.
willing to
Yeah.
engage in this journey. And it's everyone, right? Everyone is welcome. According to A Course in Miracles, all are called. So
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
actually the moment we start to listen, the thing starts out. So there's
Oh,
no
I
one who's
agree.
exempt from it. In
Oh, absolutely. Everybody. He loves everybody. He wants everybody to he wants to talk, that's the whole point. He wants to talk to everybody. But I think it's because of our maybe some people they don't have the understanding. Maybe it's their church background or not, or it's not just prayers. He actually wants to communicate with you. I mean, that makes sense to me. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, well,
Right?
I heard his voice once, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's like the Holy Spirit and channeling, this and that. It's all the same
Hmm.
thing. And the people
Yeah.
from the church community I was involved with at the time were like, no way. It's not the same thing, right?
No, it's not. And he gives everybody different messages for them. And sometimes his message is just for you. They're not for everybody else. Sometimes he'll occasionally say, like you need to do this, or he'll say, you need to tell them. But a lot of it's just for us. Here's I was just looking at something that I found that I was speaking at the International Association of Near Death Studies, and I was speaking, it was July 31st, 2016. I'm getting ready to Jesus. I was getting ready to speak on stage, and he started giving me a message while I'm eating breakfast in the hotel cafeteria. And I'm like, and I'm like, I've got to be on in 15 minutes. This is exactly not a really good time. That's what I told him. and he's like, just write it down. So the guy who's introduced me has a radio show, really sweet. He has a big syndicated radio show, Robert Scott Bell, but he's Jewish. I said, sorry, he wants me to talk about this publicly. Do you mind? He goes, yeah, I love hearing from him. I was like, well, okay. But it's not long. Do you want me to tell you what he said? What Jesus said? It's really pretty.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So this is what he said. I'm supposed to go on stage. Just something as an example, but it's so pretty. So he says this: there is no life not divinely created into existence, no meeting by accident that just appears as ships passing in the night, as random particles united by chance. All actions thereof are of divine will and co creation with all. Through the soul, heaven and earth are reunited through the joining of heart, soul beings at last dancing in the celebration of love that they are shared and will share. Each spiritual being is a unique flower in God's living garden. So pretty. Pollinating this planet with their own unique variety of talent, knowledge, wisdom, skills, and words of support. Together, we form God's beehive of life with so much activity, vigor, and life generated just within our own self. Today, as you are, breathe in and exhale out life. I pour divineness around you. The world fools us into believing life is just one big long to-do list, starting with chores, gaining a paycheck, taking care of one's family, being a parent, a spouse, a worker, including eating and sleeping, then repeating that sequence every day. And yes, part of this physical dimension requires that. However, you are the soul, the spirit light that guides not just your journey, but unknown to you. You are the tour guide director of life for others. Never, never underestimate the life that is in you, the life that has been given to you, and the life you will give. And small acts of kindness to large acts of sacrifice, it will all count toward the greater good of all on heaven and this earth. We see in you your heart's intent. I love you for your greater search for higher questioning and willingness to step forward and say, I differ. That answer is just not good enough. I want to know more. And there lies integrity and honor to your own spirit. Today, you are here not by random chance, but you, the soul being, wants more from your own self. Through tears of suffering or joy, know you are at this time on your path perfectly and exactly where you need to be, where you agreed to be. Together with God's love, we change perception and reality on earth to our own agreed upon reality, which is the freedom to be. By birthright, we are a brilliant, sparkling star featured in our own movie, choosing our own script and cast members and how we promote our own movie. You have always been free to choose all these things. No one is ever a victim, for those labeling themselves as such are only given shallow excuses of their own altered reality. Open your heart, surrender to my Father's glory, and let your soul shine. With God, know all things can be accomplished through him. Have trust, my friends. Know all will be as it should be, all is well. To those that surrender their worries to the Most High. For in God you will find peace, acceptance, love, and all your answers you seek will no longer be a mystery. Be still and wait for your crown. Clear your mind from the clutter that steps into your destiny. I have a place for you that is already yours. In this life, it is not only about the fond memories involving laughter, family and friends dear to us, the happy and sad times shared, nor is it the degrees, the novels read or published, or how many frequent flyer miles you have earned. I thought it was funny. But in the end, it is about how open your heart has been to being loved and giving love. I want each of you to know my Father's love, which awaits you generously and abundantly. I love you dearly, Jesus.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I don't talk like that. That's him. I'm not that pretty. I don't talk like that.
I think he's very humorous. I've had that experience too, and the jokes are really good. Anyways,
Yeah, like he said, I said frequent flyer miles, and he said write it down. And I'm going, and I thought that was so funny. I mean, that's a sense of humor.
yeah,
For the frequent flyer miles, I thought that was just hysterical. Like, where did that come from? But yeah, he'll say certain things, like I'll ask him something. He goes, "Why are you asking me that? You already know the answer," and then he'll laugh. So, you got to think he's dealt with all kinds of people. So of course he's got a wonderful sense of humor.
yeah, absolutely. He also speaks of in A Course in Miracles. He speaks of the fact that no sacrifice is required. Now,
Oh
I
yeah.
hear
Hmm.
in the text he gave you, he's speaking of sacrifice. No sacrifice goes unnoticed, right? Now, we might want to differentiate that, because I think he means something else than what is spoken of in A Course in Miracles in the text you are given.
Yeah, I think
Because,
that what he means is sacrifice. I think he could mean we sacrifice a lot of things. I mean, even leaving Jesus out of the equation, we sacrifice time with our family because you have to work. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. So I think that when you look at that, maybe he's looking at sacrificing time. And, I don't think it's quite in the same way
yeah,
because we
he,
all do
I think
in
all you
different
need
ways.
to give up is your grievances, right? So, and
Oh, yeah. I
that's a
mean,
small price to pay for peace of mind, right?
yeah, I think he said, because he said here surrender. So he's not really talking about, I think sacrifices, he's talking about our life. We sacrifice things to get awards, to get published, to get that, get this. But
Exactly.
that's what yeah, he's saying surrender. to his Father's glory, and let God shine through you, where all things are being accomplished through you, through
Mm.
him. So it's the opposite of this world, because he's saying surrender. People say, how do I come to Jesus? This is surrender. I said, I'm a big believer of repenting, though. I got to be honest. I mean, you need to just, between you and God, have a big crying session, go in your prayer closet, go in your car, wherever it is,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
unload.
I think what in A Course in Miracles, it asks you, he asks you to look at everything, right? All your
Yeah.
grievances with him. So that's a
Hmm.
different idea than repent and saying that I did something wrong. It's more like I look at it and see that I think it's wrong, and look at it with love, and let the let that which never happened, because it's only an interpretation, right?
Right.
Just
Well,
drop with
well,
his looking at it with you. So that's a
well.
very different idea, I think, than repent in the sense that you feel guilty.
I don't see it as different, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people that have had near-death experiences, they have a thing that's called a life review. And what happens is you're before God, Christ, all that, angels. Sometimes people have family members there, I don't know. But or their team God, whoever this, I don't know. But you're around this council, right? And God doesn't judge you. You're actually looking at your stuff. You're kind of judging yourself. You're kind of like with, and then you have a
Yes,
support system,
exactly.
a support team. They're going, yeah, there was someone telling me about their, it was so funny, their life review, and it was a part that wasn't very good. And the guy was upset, and Jesus go, yeah, that probably wasn't cool, was it? And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, like he was like, we'll get past this. But it's the person really judges. So when I say repent, a lot of people, it's a humility. And that's what I said. It's a real personal thing where you go in your car and you go through it's kind of like you could have a life review now. And you can go through the parts and have Jesus in the car with you. Close your doors, be in the car or wherever you are, and then just say, look, let's go through this together, and go through it, and let him see your heart and feel your heart, and then let him heal it from those maybe bad decisions that we've made, or ignorant decisions we've made. Sometimes we just don't see to do things we should. It's not so much our omission, our admission to thing, but our omission. So that's what I mean by that. You got to clear the soul, get a fresh start, like a sponge, wring it out, and just surrender in a state of gratitude. But I think that it helps the soul to cleanse it out. And I don't think you need a confessional. I just think you need to have Jesus there and just talk to him.
Yeah. Yep. That's
Right?
what
It's not that hard.
that's
It's
what it's
pretty
about.
easy.
That's what it's all about. Yep.
So we're kind of saying the same things. That's
Come
what I
as
mean by
you
that.
are. Come as you are. This is basically the invitation.
Yes, and like he said, people come in different places, and I don't know why I never thought about that. That he said that people come to him cussing and mad, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. But well, people, I mean, people, I don't, they're going, maybe they're mad, but they lost their, a family member or whatever, or something that, but he said they come to him all different ways. He seems fine with it.
Well, if he
So,
weren't, he wouldn't be at peace.
right.
So
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, but
yeah.
he understands. He has great understanding, and he's just happy that they're talking to him and opening that dialogue, no matter where they are, whether they're
Yeah.
crying, mad, whatever. And he never asked for anything perfection. In his eyes, he thinks we're all perfect. That's what's amazing. He does.
Yes,
And he thinks we're funny
exactly.
too. He thinks we're funny too.
Oh yeah.
He does. Yeah, he does. It's, I
In A
mean, he's
Course
just
in
like a person.
Miracles, it says
Mhm.
the body's only purpose is communication, as long as we believe we have a body. So it's very
Wow, it's
fascinating.
communication.
So
Hmm.
yes, opening the dialogue is very important, no matter what form it takes.
Right. Right. Because right, that makes sense. But yeah, and I think people don't realize that he wants a dialogue, and a dialogue is what? both ways, right? And it's not just a one way like prayer. It's. I mean, he would say friendship. That's what he would say.
Yeah.
But it's much
It's a,
more intimate than that.
it's yeah, exactly. It's a whole, yeah, you could describe it in many ways, but it goes really deep. And it's
Hmm.
all about, it comes from within you. It's not, what we usually call friendship, we usually think the person is outside of us, right? But
Right.
Yeshua's is within us. So it's
Yes.
very fascinating. And yes, people are not outside of us anyways, even if we perceive them that way. But anyways.
Right. Well, apparently, I guess we're if we felt like we knew everyone, which on some level we probably do, and that, even between, we met them in heaven, or I don't know, if we treated people more like family and kinder. But I think that the thing that I've noticed that is very, I don't like so much is, you ever notice going on like Facebook or whatever, and people I don't really necessarily know. I get on there and post my, Seeking Heaven channel stuff, and then I leave. But people will say mean things to one another, and I mean, and some of these people know one another, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, what, how do we get so insensitive to people's feelings? I don't understand that. I mean, what happened to kindness? So that's, you think about what kind of seeds you want to sow. I mean, don't you want to sow ones with kindness and encouragement? Definitely not,
Yes.
making people wrong and all of that. So it's disheartening to me sometimes to see that.
Yeah,
And that's
another one
why.
of those things from A
Mhm.
Course in Miracles is, do you want to be right or happy?
Yeah. I mean, from that, and another way to look at it, from whatever person, say, opposing viewpoint, from their viewpoint and from what information they know, they're right. You know what I mean? Based on their information, that's the assessment they made. They're right in their own mind. And so they couldn't come to another conclusion. That's another way to look at it. So, two people can both be right at the same time, if you see their viewpoint of where they're coming from. So, but here's the thing: if we all focused on love for one another and we're really trying to work toward unity and all the things, the principles that Jesus talked about, I don't think we'd be in this mess.
Yeah, the only sentence that came through when he spoke clearly with me was, let us love one another. So,
Right. Well, and to me, it comes through as fast thought telepathy because when we're spirit, that's all we are anyway, right? So it comes through. It's not like, "Hey, Tamara," it doesn't come through like that. To me, it comes through just really quick telepathy, and I know it's not me because I'm minding my business, and then I get a response in my head, and then I remember it was earlier something I talked to about Jesus. So, and sometimes I wake up and he's talking to me at night. He's just talking up a storm, and I get really frustrated when I don't remember. Sometimes I don't remember what he's talking about. Um, you know, but
yeah, yeah.
he's teaching me stuff, but I don't remember what he's teaching me. So maybe I'm not supposed to know at that point in time. But sometimes it's frustrating. I don't know if you've ever had that happen.
Oh, yeah. I had nighttime experiences where whole books were written or songs sung, and I didn't know them in the morning or when I woke up. And I was I'm very frustrated with that because I
Well,
know how beautiful it is, right? And how
mhm.
true, and how yeah, yeah, like you
Well,
said,
right.
it's more real than what we are seeing in the dream, right? If you want to put it
Mhm.
that way.
No, it's true, and they do things in heaven, and I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't they? I mean, if this heaven like Earth, why wouldn't they do things there, like classes and paint and whatever? I don't know how you get your soul into like another light body there. I don't know how any of that works, but I know that heaven is a real place, and they're not dead. That's like ghost people or something. They're not dead. They're like actually more alive than we are, And for me being a spirit, my near-death experiences, it's like, it's, how do I say it? No one in heaven wants to come back here. Just saying. I've never had any, I mean, sometimes they'll come back because they have family or they feel obligated or children or something. But otherwise, no, it's a higher level of, it's a higher love vibration, and you're closer to the presence of God. So who would want to leave that? And that's the whole point. We, as humans, feel so disconnected from God sometimes, and it's frustrating, and we want that relationship.
Yeah, we already have it, and we're keeping it from ourselves. Yeah, so yeah,
Well, I think
it's a very very important topic. Yeah,
well, I
just
think that people, what keeps coming up for me, and it makes me very sad, is that people, uh, I keep getting from people when I talk to them, like they're not good enough, or they're just really hard on themselves. And I think that's just not serving us. Look, this is the way I look at it. God thought well enough of all of us to be here right now and to breathe life into us. Because let me tell you what, if it was your time, you don't even have to have anything wrong with you. You could just die. You could just be in your chair. I've actually known two people just right in their chair. Boom. One was at a business meeting. So God has given us this precious life because he wants us here right now. And if he thought well enough of us to be here, why in the world don't we? And why don't we honor this life more? But so many people are in a pity party, and they need to get on with things, because like, we're not here that long. We need to just be in a state of gratitude and to realize we are still connected if we want to, and not let this world separate us from our maker and from our best friend Yeshua.
yeah, or to put it clearly, from who we really are. And
That's who we are. We're part of him. He's part of us, and we are spiritual beings that's eternal. And people are thinking we're these bodies. Well, we are for a short time, but that's not, we're so much more than that. That's not all that we are. So that's why a lot of times when people, to me, they have problems coming to God, I think it's because there's a step left out. And the step is, you're a spiritual being. A lot of people don't even know that. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but they don't. So how can they think there's a God? So you first have to start with, you're a spiritual being, made in the image of God. God's real, and then go on to talk about other things. So uh, I think it's just really honoring the life that you have here. But people, again, I think they have distractions, and they make it complicated. It's really not that complicated, right? I mean, it's so available. God's love and Christ's love is so available to us. It's just not that complicated.
yeah, another thing A Course in Miracles says is, I am not a body, I am free, for I am just as God created me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you
so
know what Jesus tells me? He says, I am, I asked him about that, and he goes, I am, you are, and God is. I'm like, okay. We're so much more than the bodies. I mean, we're eternal, and especially in our spiritual state with him. So, we don't have to wait to cross over for that to happen. We can have that connection right now. Only thing is working at it. The only thing that I think we have to work at is getting our own mind out of the way, our monkey mind, and just surrendering and enjoying the experience, because sometimes we stop our own self from having a relationship.
yeah, one of the things about A Course in Miracles, it's of course also in mind training, because we let the monkey mind run free, and we need to learn
hmm
to actually focus.
Uh,
Yeah,
I agree. That's so important what you're saying. That I'm surprised. That's fantastic. They're covering that. I
oh
wanted to
yeah,
have. I mean, people. I mean, I know so many Christians. Their mind is just out of control. They need to go stop. This is time with God right now, and control their minds going crazy.
yeah, and that's what he's teaching, right? How to to focus our minds and choose again, right? And we've chosen in a way that makes us uncomfortable and unhappy, right?
No, absolutely. Well, the other thing that yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be your mind shouldn't divide you. Different people's thought processes shouldn't divide us from one another. When he told me after I did the Jesus Speaks, he told me in August to create this Seeking Heaven, the Near Death Experience and Other Phenomena channel, right? He said YouTube again. And I said, well, why, what is this? And he said, okay, so we've got to pull people together. So he's telling me. He's telling me outside it's summer. I'm in the pool. He's talking to me, telling me this. And I'm like upset because Facebook just took me out for posting Jesus Speaks, for posting these things on Christ Academy of Love. Took just for having that up there, and then took down my Christian sites, took down all the scripture, whatever. Anyway, he said, don't let that take you off course. He said, I want you to do this. I said, why? He says, I want all religions, all things, all different kinds of people, all different topics and mysteries. And he said, I said, Bigfoot? He goes, yeah, sure, fine. He said, him too. And I said, well, I don't get it. I didn't get it. I didn't get it in the beginning. And he said, he said, people in this day and age have to be entertained. It's a sad day. And he said, and you can still talk about spirituality. He said, you always talk about me. And I'm like, well, it's true. I always talk about you. He said, but you do it with everybody. It's true. I talk to everybody. I don't care, who you are, Muslim, whatever. I say, hey, for me, this is how I roll with Jesus. And he said, so, it's going to be in there. And he said, he said, what you're doing is we want to be inclusive. He said, anyone coming, that's moving toward the direction of my Father is a good direction. And I said, yeah, but what about you and the relationship with you? He goes, I'll worry about that. You just keep talking and being you. And he says, I'll worry about that. And I said, well, they might not love you like you. He said, that's really not your business. He said, I love everybody. And I was like, well, okay then. And that's what's happening. I'm bringing all these people together that are all different religions and around the world because we need to come together in love. And somehow he's doing this. He said that he told me 2 weeks ago, he said, you were the perfect person for this. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, you're eclectic. All the topics these other people do, like New Agers, but then, anything any Christian would answer. I went, yeah, that's true. He goes, he said, and you could talk to anybody, even different, people that you can barely understand different languages. He said, it was always you. And I went, wow, that totally makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So Jesus knows what he's doing, and he knows where our strengths are. And he is pulling people together now, and he is still teaching the principles when he was walking this earth. He's still teaching them.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And you see with the Holy Spirit's curriculum of joy, it's also about A Course in Miracles and interdisciplinary synergies. So everything is inclusive, right? So
That's what
yeah,
he told me. Yeah.
so
Wow, that's
that's the
so
direction this is
beautiful.
going too.
Wow,
And
that
you
makes
see,
so
I
much
have people
sense.
from all kinds of backgrounds on the podcast. So it's really, really fascinating.
Wow. Well, Jesus is telling you the same thing. And um, he said he wants everybody. I love everybody, but I'll have people that have written me terrible things. And Jesus told me about that too. He said, look, just consider the source, where it's coming from, and let it roll off your back. Don't worry about it. But I've had people that have written me that, um, you're a Christian and you're this and you're that, and you talk about Jesus all the time. And then I have other people that say, if you were really a Christian, you wouldn't have these other topics and these people there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what he told me. He said, we need to work with labels. I said, what do you mean? I said, do I label people? He goes, I'm not exactly talking about that. He says, I'm talking about how people label themselves, and they've stopped they're so close-minded that they're not available spiritually like they should be. And he said that they're like what is it, like a Russian doll set, where they're way down in there as the spiritual person. And he said that they've created all these traps for themselves. And He said that it doesn't serve anyone, and that
Yeah.
like I tell everybody, whatever if you want to learn about yoga or whatever, just bring Jesus with you. If it gets too weird, he'll get you out of it. Don't worry about it. I mean, so look, right? I mean, like Course in Miracles, I don't know about that. That's not the Presbyterian doctrine. Okay, well, bring Jesus along. He probably gives it 2 thumbs up, 5 stars. I mean, always bring him along. You won't get in too much trouble, but we should not have a spirit of fear. I do believe you should have discernment. I don't think you should be doing any weird stuff,
Yes.
but other than that, we really should have more comfort in our spiritual growth. Jesus, if we let him, is totally in control, and we'll be fine. I don't know why people get so weirded out by this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So
They don't trust themselves.
yeah, it's one of the in the manual for teachers. He speaks of trust as the prime aspect of a teacher of God, and then come the others, and one of them is open-mindedness. So you can
Yeah.
see
Hmm.
how
Yeah.
important that is, and it's really really important, because you can be very closed-minded about many things, but it's not going to help you in your happiness necessarily.
Right. And people don't understand. And he doesn't care what you are. Jesus loves he really loves everybody. He doesn't care if someone I mean, he really doesn't care. He just loves everybody. And if that's the case, why are we labeling people? Well, they're blah blah blah. They're different than me. I shouldn't talk to them.
Yeah,
Why?
and to love
Why?
everyone is justifiable in his eyes. It's just and right, and that's something we need to learn too. We are being taught to
Mm-hmm.
love all, right? Because that's the
Yes,
only way you can love, which is amazing.
absolutely. Right. And so I've been learning. I didn't expect when I started my thing like yours, I didn't expect, with the Seeking Heaven channel. I just thought, okay, well, I'll be of service. This should be fun. I really didn't know. Okay. But I trusted. But what it really is accomplishing that it's bringing also spiritual leaders together. And, look, there are, a small amount that occasionally does get judgy, on both sides, to be honest. Okay. And I allow them to be that way. That's where they are, and I try to send them love. But um, we need to get past this. We got to get past this point in society and have more love for one another without all these conditions.
Yeah,
That's what they are. They're conditions.
yeah. We're it's it's barriers that you're putting up, that you don't even have a reality as a basis, truth as a basis. I mean, so yeah,
Hmm.
there's no truth as a basis for separation. Truth
Absolutely,
is
and that's
always the
right.
basis for oneness, unity, wholeness, completeness,
Hmm.
holiness, innocence.
Yes,
So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, amen on that. That's exactly where we need to be, and I'm so happy that you're speaking about this and talking about this because there's a song. It says, "What is it? They know we are Christians by our love," and that song. Well, I'm thinking, really, because so many judge others and say horrible things, and I can't control that. But that's not what it's about. It's about unity and allowing people to be like beautiful flowers in a field, that we're
yes.
all part of God, and Jesus doesn't love one person more than the other. And even that person that you may think is strange that does some kind of I don't know, goes to India twice a year and does whatever, that is not your business. That's between them and God and Jesus.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
the whole thing is that we actually love all too, and we are blocking that with our ideas, our judgments, our interpretations, to see that, to feel that, to experience it in our daily lives, because our
Yes.
love is as total as Yeshua's love, as God's love, because that's who we are.
Yeah,
And
you're absolutely right.
to remember this, and to allow this to be there, that's what's so powerful. And yes, we are all struggling with the judgments and the interpretations that we are coming up with, right? Or have made up, right?
Mhm.
And that's why
Right.
we need the help that is offered in the symbol of Yeshua or any other symbol
Mhm.
that makes sense to us, right?
Right. And
In this life that comes from within, this total commitment, this total oneness, right? And total
you're
love and down to earthness, that is what what we are speaking of now, right?
Well, to even take it a step further, there's different people, humans on earth, right, than us that think different things. It's okay. It's their path where they are. And we're trying to get them back to the place that there's plenty of holy people I know that are not, a Christian. There's something else, but they believe in God very much. Okay. So that's not that's not to judge. I mean, it's not like they're, doing voodoo or something. I mean, they're just a different, practice. That's okay. We need to teach this love. But if
Well,
the other thing is too, there's different religions in heaven, not religions, but people, holy men, rabbis, whatever. When I'm saying they're part of, they're holy when they cross over. You know what I mean? They go to a certain place. They don't go to just a place for the rabbis. I mean, Jesus works through all different religions.
actually, there's holiness and innocence in voodoo and in all these African
Probably. Yeah.
diaspora religions as well, or even in the African religions, the originals. In
Right.
all practices, there is holiness and innocence, because we are here to love all, not to love
Mhm.
one more than another, because we can't
Mhm.
love ourselves otherwise.
Right.
And so this
Right.
is the thing that we are learning, right? That's what he's teaching us, Yeshua.
Mhm.
Whether we have this experience as Yeshua, or we have another way of
Mhm.
opening up to the guidance that is there for us. There's so many
Right.
paths and so many ways to open up to this deep experience of love that is there for us. And that's what we need to be looking out for, to see that in everyone, rather
Right.
than demand that they bring it in a form that we recognize as using the same language that we are used to, right? So
Right.
he's in A Course in Miracles, he says, it's not about the form, it's about the
Mhm.
content. And
It's
that's what I
true.
think is so important, to really be looking at the content, not the form. So yeah,
Right.
we don't know, when some people are cursing and this and that, and actually the content of it is something totally different. But if we are
Mhm.
so fed up with the language, we don't even get to hear the content or experience it. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's kind of what he told me about all of this and about he said not to be concerned. He said just be genuine and just I all we can do is say from my perspective I feel this, but we can't force our opinions even if we have really deep convictions. We can't force it upon others. They have to be on their journey whatever they are and allowing that. And for some, I don't know at what point we stop allowing people to be themselves and not being able to develop on this, earth plane the way that they're supposed to, because my path is different than other people's path. All we can do is speak about our own journey and what God means to us. So I think if we stay in our lane and we drive by and wave to people and say hello, let them drive in their lane, we'll be okay. But for some reason, people got real nosy about what people are doing, and it's really none of their business. It's between them and God.
Well, yeah, it's a very important topic to look at. How do you see content over form, right? How to see content
Hmm.
over form. And that's a big one, right? So how can you see love
Right.
no matter what form it is appearing in?
I feel it
Yeah.
through when I meet people. I see many different people from, and People all over the world, on my the Seeking Heaven channel, and I look at their eyes and I see God in their eyes, and I can also feel it in their hearts. That's how
Yeah, yeah,
you
that's what
can
it's
see
all
God.
about.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
see God in people's eyes. It doesn't matter if they're, from, I know several people from South Africa, Ireland, Canada, Australia, but you can still see that spark of God in all their eyes.
Yeah,
And I think that,
to see the love, the depth, the truth in everyone. Yeah.
right, because we can learn from other people if they're coming, if you come from a place of love and humble, you can really have conversations with people about just about anything, right? And you can
Mm,
listen to them say just about anything. But when you start framing it, like you said, with judgments or parameters, you're boxing you in and the other person. So, I like to create a platform that's has a dialogue that people are not going to make fun of if you have a question. Because I remember as a kid, I had all sorts of questions about the Holy Spirit and God and why are we here? And I got laughed at. And I just wouldn't want to do that to anyone, because if your soul is urging to know something, then that's where you are at this point in your journey. And that, God's going to help you understand that, whatever you're requesting.
I like that. Let's leave it there. And would you please give us ways that one can reach you if one wants to?
Yes, absolutely. You can, first of all, I mentioned the free, Jesus messages at Christ Academy of Love.com. And then also, I'm on YouTube, and it's called Seeking Heaven, the Near Death Experience and Other Phenomena. But probably when you enter Seeking Heaven, the Near Death Experience, it'll probably just pop right up and you'll see my face there. And then you can also, communicate with me on that. I have an email, info@seekingheavenshow.com. And I also have info at, christacademyoflove.com. But I think the info at seekingheavenshow.com would suffice if anyone has any questions. But yeah, and check out that free site and subscribe to my channel. I have lots of interesting guests, and I had a scientist on last week, and I'm having him on tomorrow, and what is it? Friday, but about how he finished Einstein's work of relativity, but he said he was inspired by God. And a lot of the scientists programs won't have him on because they don't like him saying that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is. Why
why is it?
shouldn't we be? I know it's a very important thing to allow that to be part of your scientific research and experience, because it's actually human. It's part of who we are. So it's allowed to be
Yeah,
part of it. Yeah.
right. And wouldn't use music and everything else is inspired. So why wouldn't science and why wouldn't all of that? So I
Yeah,
think we're
science
much closer.
certainly is
Yeah.
inspired, whether we term it that way or not. It's one of the other things. It's language.
Hmm.
Scientific language. There's how many scientific languages there are? I don't. There's so many. I
Oh,
happen
that's
to have
true.
learned the language of anthropology, right? But that doesn't mean that I understand all the other scientific languages there are.
True. Yeah, that
So,
makes sense. But can you believe he's judged for that?
well,
That makes
people,
no sense to me.
no, it doesn't, but it makes sense to those who are holding on to form rather than content. So, so
Oh,
yes,
that makes sense.
right. So, anyways,
Well,
yeah,
I'm
then
gonna send this.
I
Hmm.
ask you to spread the word, all of you, to spread the word about the podcast so that people can get to know it and leave reviews so that more people find it. And I'm having really exciting guests the next weeks as well. So it's going to be really, really fun.
Awesome. Well, you're doing a really wonderful job, and I celebrate you being a teacher. I mean, you're teaching now. So I thank you for doing this work, and and having an open platform for people to spiritually grow.
Yeah, it's really important to me, because there's so many different stories there, right? Available to us through everyone, right? Who comes.
Right.
And each one is inspiring in a different way. And it's still pointing us to ways we can remember who we are. And that's what's so important.
It's remembering, absolutely. And this is not our home having us. So that's beautiful you're doing that. And also, you don't know, people, you may say one thing and it gets them on their path,
Yeah,
inspiring them.
that's true. One never knows. But
Well,
Yeshua does, which is so fun, right? I don't, but he does.
what a
He
what
knows
a
what he's
what a
doing.
he knows what he's doing, and he puts people together, and he's just, I mean, he's busy these days, let me tell you, but he's wonderful. And he has just a beautiful sense of humor, and his presence is, you don't need to do anything special to have him around. I mean, he just loves being with people, and it just
Yeah,
makes him happy wherever you are.
that's true. And he brought us together, you were like, "Oh, do I fit on the show or not?"
Well, I was like, oh gosh, this guy's pretty, but okay, it's true. It's true. Well, thank you for believing in me, because I'm really not, I really love Jesus a lot. I'm not a weirdo or anything like that. And I do hear his messages, but, I love him genuinely. And, yeah, so I'm glad you saw that. I'm glad the Holy Spirit pointed you in this direction. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for joining me here. And I hope to be able to join with you in other ways as well. And all the
Absolutely. This
very
is
best.
wonderful.
And
Yes.
yeah, till next time. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye bye.